What's up, everybody? After a long regular season, we finally made it to the NFL playoffs, and the wild card round starts this weekend. In this video, we're going to be talking about each and every game on the AFC side of the bracket. We'll show you which games those entail. Looking at the right side of this image here, Chiefs locking up that number one seed, get the bye. We'll be taking you through a pretty good 4 or 5 game with the Texans and Chargers, an AFC North rematch for the third time this season with the Ravens and the Steelers, and some familiar faces with some folks in Denver traveling to Buffalo to take on the MVP favorite, Josh Allen. So, Slee, let's kick it off. Which game we got first?
Yeah. First up, we're starting with the 11-6 Chargers heading to Houston, play the 10-7 Texans. So this is one of those matchups, and I imagine we'll have some sort of playoff change going forward just on the seeding aspect of it. Seeing the Vikings being on the road at 14-3, we got a bunch of these games this weekend, but we have the 11-6 Chargers as the better overall team record-wise on the road. And we see it there. They're -2.5 heading into this game. We saw Harbaugh finding success in LA in his very first season, which we did not see Staley really bring to fruition there.
Hmm.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, the line makes sense to me. The Texans really stumbled down the stretch. They won the AFC South for a second year in a row, but that's the weakest division in football right now. They were 5-1 in the AFC South, so take that away. They're 5-6 outside of the division this year. Um, like we said, just really stumbled down the stretch. They're a bottom five offense in the second half of the regular season.
Wow.
Stephon Diggs' injury really hurt him, and then Tank Dell, bad leg injury down the stretch too. So really thin, really struggling. I'm interested what your thoughts are. Are you selling low on the Texans? Because I mean, to me, it looks like the Chargers seem like the nice play here, but they are on the road, and I mean, the Houston's defense has shown up every week. Will Anderson Jr., Derek Stingley, like they got guys back there, so it'll be a close game as this one predicts. But I initially lean with the Chargers, just the way the last several weeks have gone.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to come out and see this line be in favor of the Chargers. Being on the road, being a young team with some relatively young talent and new talent on the roster, especially on the offensive side of the football. But when you watch the last few games, and like you mentioned, watch this second half of the season, there's no question who's been the better team here. Part of it is a lot due to injury from the Texans side, especially offensively. That wide receiver room is a lot thinner than it was when the season started. But even then, and outside of that, the Chargers are a team that's always overcoming injuries, but you're seeing CJ Stroud have a big letdown this year and be a lot less efficient, even when his starters were healthy. So you're seeing a big downgrade there. And you mentioned the Texans, their relative strength being the defense, and they got a lot of playmakers and ballers on that side of the football. But while that is their relative strength, the Chargers are absolutely the better defense. I use that absolutely very literally in terms of absolute ranking. The Chargers have a better ranked defense, and you can look at the eyeball test, and that's just what you're going to get from the personnel they have and some very versatile guys on defense, but from that coaching staff as well. It's no surprise that the defense really tightened up. And then offensively, again, the Chargers have the advantage over the Texans there. So I keep talking about these because the more you watch, the less you'd be surprised that the Chargers are favored. I think 2.5 is a good line to be betting the Chargers here on the road. I think it's going to be a tight game, but I like how the Chargers offense is predicated on the run game. You're seeing Justin Herbert run the ball himself a little bit more than he has in seasons past, but that run game really opens up the play action and getting the ball to Ladd McConkey, who's been really solid there in terms of a PPR yak guy. And then if Quentin Johnson can catch the ball, he's a great option too. He's had his fair share of drops. But I just like the style of this Chargers offense and leaning on their top six defense here to lead the way. If it was 3.5, I wouldn't be saying the same thing. I'd be taking the points with a Texans team that, while young, has playoff experience just this last season. But given the coaching staff and the pedigree of this Chargers team, and I'd say, right now, a better quarterback, better offense, better defense, it's hard to pick against the Chargers here.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm standing on this one. Like I'm thinking about it though, Texans, home dogs. It's just they've looked like I said, bottom five offense, second half of the season. And it doesn't really look like that's gonna just turn around. Like you said, how stout this Chargers defense is. And
Right.
it's really the Texans are losing guys like you can't just replace Diggs and Dell and uh, just kind of find that production from your bench. And yeah, I know I'm going down the line and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, well,
It's really
McConkey
good.
and the Chargers offense is a little one-dimensional in the passing game. Stingley, I mean, could match up pretty well defensively,
Fair.
has a good game. But then at the same time, I mean, I'm still taking Herbert over Stroud, just from especially what I've seen the second half of the season in the last few weeks. Yeah, I mean, everything's telling me to go with the Chargers, so I'm not gonna just zag, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I just feel like
No,
a home dog is a pretty line.
no, you wouldn't be surprised. And, given how the Texans have looked last year and just knowing the talent they have, even with their mired injury-filled locker room, they still have a ton of talent remaining on the field. It's just that one, the eyeball test, these two teams have been trending in a much different direction in the second half of the season. But what really, I guess, makes this choice definitive for me is knowing how talented this Chargers defense is. They've having a pretty solid run defense, actually the sixth best run defense according to PFF. But what I'm so impressed with is their secondary, which is a top four unit here, with again, a depleted wide receiver room against one of the best coverage units in football. If this Texans team gets down, I think it's going to be a really hard time for them to come back. Conversely, if the Texans come up, I don't think it's as hard for the Chargers to mount a comeback, seeing how skilled and how really used to playing from behind and down Justin Herbert has been in his career. They got the options at wide receiver. Now, they're not as intimidating as a lot of locker rooms, but you're seeing Ladd really step up in the role that he needs to as a rookie, and you still have talent and first round talent in Quentin Johnston that I think can help really stretch the field there too. It's,
Yeah.
you can talk about the players as much as you want. At the end of the day, it's a road playoff game, and always going to be a tough environment to play in, and that's why 2.5 is a good line to me. 3.5 would be a much different story.
Oh no,
You
I'm
see, you
completely
see
there.
home teams lose in the playoffs every year. Every year it happens.
Yeah, I
Um,
grabbed this line too, well, just a little while ago. So who knows? Maybe by tomorrow or the next day we could see it move to three.
yeah,
But all right, I'm with you there on the Chargers money line spread. Any leans on the total here?
just in general, it really does seem like defenses clamp down in the playoffs. It seems like a playoff under, like that's always been the good bet. I think look no further than the Sunday night football game with the Lions and Vikings. Like that was a playoff atmosphere. That was for very high stakes, and you saw the defenses on both sides show up. And more towards the Lions, more so the Lions than the Vikings. But for the first half, it was very hotly contested from a defensive perspective. I think you see defenses really hone in, clamp down, and study the film to try to scheme against an offense that is a little bit less flexible to create new plays in such short notice, whereas the defense has much more flexibility and agility to kind of plug up some of the holes they've had and block some of the strategy that the opposing team's offense has been afforded for 17, 18 weeks.
Yeah, no, I'm
So
with you.
this game, I don't have a strong lean. I would say probably just about every game I'd be leaning in the under though,
That's
because of
kind of what I'm thinking too. I'm looking across the board and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to touch per se for the totals, but it does seem to usually go under in the playoffs.
Mhm.
Especially, yeah, if this line's sitting at 43.5. We talked about how good these defenses are. Um, I mean, yeah, it just seems to be the way to go. But don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment. Uh, yeah, just anything you want to add there, Woj?
Yeah, if you're watching this video this far, I hope you're enjoying it and be sure to share the love.
Yeah, love it. Let's jump into our second AFC matchup. This time we got the 10-7 Steelers, kind of on a similar note to the Texans, just really fumbling here down the stretch. They're heading into Baltimore to play the 12-5 Ravens. Steelers, as mentioned, they've lost four straight heading into this one. On the flip side, Ravens are playing their better football this second half of the season. Lamar is really looking like the best he has. I know Woj is a Josh Allen MVP better, but Lamar's made his case too, and he's won MVP in the past. He's thrown for 40 touchdowns and fewer than 5 interceptions, the first player in NFL history to do so. So yeah, the Ravens are looking great. The Steelers, not so much. Two teams trending different directions. And really, the Ravens defense has stepped it up. We were talking in the first half of the season how poor they're playing. Yeah, it just didn't really look like that typical Baltimore stout defense that we see. But they're holding teams in weeks 11 to 17. I don't know what happened in week 18 or if the stat wasn't out by then, but they were holding teams through those 6 weeks to just 171 passing yards per game and less than a 30% third down conversion rate.
Wow.
They're holding teams, forcing three and outs, making teams pump the ball. But this season series was split, albeit both teams won their home games, and Baltimore is at home here. So they're 9.5 point favorites. This is pretty much what I expected going into this game. Um, Honestly, I feel like I'm typically on the Steelers on these large spreads, and because of that, I they usually fall short by that point or so. I would not be surprised at all if Baltimore wins this one by 10. I'm not too afraid of like the Steelers covering it like a 9 or an 8, but it could be like a 3 point game. I just don't think you're getting a ton of value at the 9.5 number, I guess is what I'm saying here. So my
Yeah,
lean
I
here
think
is
you're right
again with
about
the
that.
favorite with Baltimore. But I have like the Steelers all season. It's just yeah, like are you selling on the Steelers low like we would with the Texans? Like, because I don't know, yeah, you don't really expect those week to week jumps heading into the playoffs like you do during the regular season. Like,
Hmm.
especially they've lost four straight. Like, are they just gonna figure it out all of a sudden in Baltimore in the playoffs? It's tough to see, but I want to hear
No, I think the playoffs are where you see teams' true colors, and I think that's why you see this 9.5 point spread, especially. This game was happening in the regular season. I know I'd be all over the Steelers plus 9.5 because that's just how these regular season team games go against in between these two teams. But like I said, I think the true colors show for each team here, and the Ravens' true colors are the best offense in the NFL, behind probably the best quarterback in the NFL. If Lamar Jackson can and won't win MVP this year, I hope he goes out and wins the Super Bowl MVP for the first time in his career. But between the great running offense that this team has implemented and how great Lamar Jackson has been in the passing game, I cannot imagine the Ravens not putting up an ample amount of points this game. What's going to be the deciding factor in the spread here is if the Steelers can do so. And I personally don't think so. We mentioned the Ravens defense at the top of this game here. You've seen their defense really step up the second half of the year behind defense. First time defensive coordinator, by the way, Zach Orr here for the Ravens. And the unit that really struggled in the beginning of the season was the secondary, and he's brought that back up to a top 10 coverage unit. Ravens run defense as it has been over the last decade plus, top five in the league. So the Steelers with an already dilapidated run game and a poor O line, not big play explosion versatility out of either Warren or Najee Harris, they're gonna have to lean in that pass game. And because of the improvements that I've seen with the Ravens in the past defense, that gives me the confidence to say that I think the Ravens cover 9.5 here. And the other thing that I want to say is as this season goes on and on further into the later months of the season, you get these defensive guys that get so worn down and lose a step and lose a little bit of power. And that is when a guy like Derrick Henry really kills you when he's touching the ball 25 times a game, running down your throat. You saw him have a huge game in week 18 against the Browns, who have a very good run defense, by the way. I would expect the same thing here, a heavy dose of Derrick Henry and breaking a few tackles and making a few big plays here too. I'm on the Ravens. Again, I'm still going to stick with the under. And the only reason I think the total would hit is because the Ravens put up 35 points themselves, which is, I truly believe that is in the realm of possibility this game.
Yeah, I mean they put up 34 the last two time or the last time these two teams played. I believe the total hit like 51. So yeah, it wasn't by any means that old school defensive battle that we're kind of used to when we see these two teams play in the playoffs. But I guess one thing too, like I was thinking about it, because I saw that the Denver Broncos. They haven't made the playoffs since 2015, when they won the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
And I like the year or two before that, Russell Wilson was in the Super Bowl. Like, are we underestimating Russell's playoff experience and just how far that experience goes in a game like this?
That's fair. You're also going up against a quarterback that has some playoff experience as well, not quite the same as Russell Wilson. But you're going up against a two-time MVP and a guy that basically can beat every team in the league but Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. So I'd be, intrigued to see how that shakes out. And I think that, and what I would say is that experience in the playoffs only goes so far.
No, I agree. I think the Steelers are just too outmatched, like skill position wise, like at really most facets of the game.
These guys get down and their number one option is, George Pickens. They got Calvin Austin. Like George Pickens is a great receiver, but he's
He
not
only had
like
like one catch last game either.
yeah, he shouldn't like
He
you
can
don't
get
want your
shut
season
down.
on the line, be like, okay, George, come get me some big play. And he's a big playmaker, but he's not like the guy
Can't
that's going to
rely on
rack
him,
up the
right?
catches and get 100 catches a season. No, he's going to run the vertical route and he's going to run a hitch route, and it's going to be tough for a cornerback to decide which one he's running because he's so fast and powerful. But he doesn't have a ton of versatility and agility to him, where he's going to be like an Amon-Ra St. Brown running an incredibly diverse route tree.
No, yeah, I'm with you there. I'm playing a little bit of devil's
No, of
advocate,
course you are, as you
but
should be. And he's a good, like I said, he's a good receiver. But he's not the kind of guy you need in a game where you're likely to be down early and you're going up against a pretty decent passing unit. Like that's playoff teams, especially ones that win the first round, have better wide receiver ones.
yeah, I mean, if the Steelers could get some receivers, they'd get interesting quick.
Yeah, yeah, it would be.
But I'm with you though. I like the Ravens spread, and yeah, I mean, you like are leaning towards the over, not official,
Yeah,
but
I'd be leaning towards the over.
I want to after the last game, but I don't know. Like you said at the start, I feel like just every playoff game under. Like I
Seems okay. No,
remember, like
especially
one of
when
the first playoff games I remember watching was Steelers. Like,
you see a team twice already, you start to know their tricks on offense. Sometimes it doesn't matter when you're playing Lamar Jackson, but you can definitely figure out how to, hey, what went wrong last time or the time before that, and what can we do different? And it's a little bit harder for the offense, again, to make those adjustments. Of course, they're going to, and they're going to call different plays based on what they've seen. But again, much easier for a defense to make adjustments and really create on the fly week to week.
I like it. No, yeah, 2 for 2 on the same. Let's see if we diverge on this last one.
Yeah, let's
Our
see.
final AFC matchup, those first 2 games on Saturday, this last AFC game being on Sunday. We got the 10-7 Broncos going to Buffalo, the 13-4 Bills. Bills just won the AFC East for the fifth straight year now. And then and Buffalo also hasn't lost a home game all year. See it there with the -8.5 point spread. Uh, they're the first team to amass 30 rushing and passing touchdowns in a
Wow.
season. So definitely balanced offense. I mean, a lot of those come from Josh Allen, but we saw more James Cook and more from the backfield than we have in the last few seasons in Buffalo. Definitely added another layer to that offense. On the flip side, Bo Nix led the Broncos to their first playoff appearance since 2015, as we just said. Um, Not the team that everybody really expected, but very stingy defense. Sean Payton, experienced coach, well as well. Um, I mean, maybe they could match up decent on defense, but I mean, Josh Allen's just kind of one of those guys that you can't match up with,
Hmm.
because he does just a little bit of everything at his size and athleticism. So that's tough for them in this matchup, especially when you have a lockdown corner and they just spread the ball around so much on offense. I mean, Denver's defense will still do a good job, but I don't necessarily love the matchup here. I'm curious where your thoughts are at. I mean, a lot of what I was reading into, I mean, I don't want to ride all favorites, but I mean, Buffalo's
No,
been,
I'm with you. I think you made a lot of good points. It's tough to pick this game because I think if I'm looking on paper, I definitely like the Broncos here. You know, it's all about defense for me in the playoffs too. And I think again, much easier to control. Broncos have a top four defense here, really in the backs of their coverage unit. But what's even more concerning is that it's the Bills that have the fifth worst defense in football in terms of PFF ranking and the second to worst coverage unit. So I think it's going to be a little bit closer than you think because those defenses are such a wide discrepancy, certainly the widest in the playoffs here. It's not often you get a team with such a poor defense that makes it in the playoffs, let alone a two seed, and looks as dominant as they have and gets 8.5 points in the first round. But like you said, that's all or mostly because Josh Allen is so unschemable. Like he's proving, and I think that some people know this for a while, you don't need great wide receivers to enable a great quarterback to play MVP caliber football. All in all, by all reports, this Bills receiving core has underwhelmed this season. They traded for Amari Cooper from Cleveland. He's been hurt and disappointing since receiving him. Keon Coleman, their first round pick, hasn't really done much. They got Curtis Samuel. He hasn't done a ton. Dalton Kincaid, the receiving tight end, hasn't done much either. At least all those guys not up to some of the expectations that you would have thought coming into this season. And yet Josh Allen is still by far the odds-on favorite for MVP. And it just proves how unschemable he really is. And for that reason, I do think the Bills are going to win. I think it's really tough to pick and go away from this -8.5, but I cannot overlook the defensive discrepancies. I cannot overlook how great this Broncos defense is and how time and time again you were surprised by Bo Nix and just the Broncos team in general. They have this uncanny ability to keep themselves in games they really have no business being around in. For all those reasons, I'm going to take the Broncos. And because of the Josh Allen effect offensively and the poor Bills defense, I'm going to take the over here as well. I think the one thing that's, I mentioned it many times, the poor defense from Buffalo, what's really saved them this year is their ability to force turnovers defensively and Josh Allen's great ability to really cut down his turnovers, which had plagued him each season prior. So that's where the Buffalo Bills defense redeems itself is the ability to win the turnover margin. And against a rookie quarterback on the road in a really tough place to play in Buffalo, it seems likely. But again, I'm going to look at the stats here and take the defense that has a much bigger relative advantage to its opponent and take the Broncos +8.5 here.
Yeah. No, I mean, initially I was kind of on the Bills -8.5. I mean, much better offense, but like you
By
said,
far.
the defense, if not, is a greater difference between these two teams. But yeah, I mean, the way I was thinking about it, I mean, Buffalo, yeah, their defense is weak, but I don't think it would really, like you said, I mean, Buffalo still probably gets the win here, but it'd probably be a closer game than we expect. Like I think the defense is going to catch up to them eventually, like against the Chiefs,
Yeah,
against
probably not this game, but I forget the bracket that we had up. But you win here. Let me see if I can figure it out. See who they hypothetically play based on our predictions. You win here, and you're probably
you're
playing
playing
the
the
Chargers.
Ravens, right?
You play the Chargers or the
Okay.
Texans.
Okay.
The only way they would play someone that's not the Chargers or Texans is if Pittsburgh wins, and given the spread, probably not. So you're probably playing the Chargers here based on the spread and based on what we're predicting. Your offense probably bails you out of that game too, even though you're against a pretty good defense. You face off against the Ravens or the Chiefs. I don't think, even with how poor the Chiefs' offense has been, I don't think their defense bails you out.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought. But you did sell me on the spread. Like that Denver defense should be able to keep them in the game. Not that it really matters, but I mean they're used to the cold weather, the snowy weather. Like not really expecting like a massive weather effect in this one. I mean Buffalo fans are still nuts. Bills Mafia is gonna be
Yeah,
rocking.
no, they're going to be out there going crazy. It's so
Yeah,
hard. I mean,
it's not like
honestly,
Miami though heading into heading up there.
no, no, not at all. And honestly, I feel like if I'm thinking about the game script, I feel like the spread and the over for the Broncos probably doesn't make sense. They don't have a great run game, but the Bills defense, again, not great at stopping the run either. Um, but you're really banking on if you're taking the Broncos spread and the over, like some big plays from this offense, which again, given the coverage unit for the Bills is very possible and something that we've seen a lot as an MO of this Broncos offense. It's just, do you believe they have that in them again? Or is it going to be more of a defensive game and some staunch play calling from Sean Payton that keeps the Broncos here in a tight, low scoring game in a cold weather environment? It's hard to You got to paint the script for yourself. But I think there's a lot of scripts where the Broncos can cover here. But again, to throw that qualifier out there, there's a script where Josh Allen plays MVP football, and you just can't stop him here. He does seem like he's a man possessed this season, and he has it all figured out. And if you're going to take away every single one of his passing options, he's going to find it with his legs and vice versa. And it's just unpredictable how great he's going to be, similar to what Lamar Jackson's been doing too. This is going to be, I think, one of my more enjoyable watches this weekend.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Woj. I think it'll be a good game. So we're with the Bills money line, but Broncos spread.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I
with
might
you.
eat my words given my love for Josh Allen this year and how great he's played, but it's really hard to, again, hard to overlook how well Bo Nix has done. I think he's well overachieved what most people thought he was going to do. I thought he was going to be a bust the second he came into the league. Not often you see guys playing 6, 7 years of college football and come in and succeed, let alone take a team to the playoff their rookie year. Very impressed with what he's doing, and I think a lot of it's obviously a little bit of quarterback whisperer, Sean Payton as his head coach, but that's a good situation to be in.
Yeah, I feel like turnovers could affect this game too. I mean, you kind of hinted at it. Josh Allen's cut way down on him, but who knows? I feel like eventually he's gonna have one of those games where he just
You think? You really
spirals
do think?
because
We'll
he's
find out. I
had
sure hope not.
he's
I'm
had
rooting
plenty.
for the guy so
I don't
hard,
want it to happen. I'm just like
but you're right. That's just what we've seen from
I
him in the
really
playoffs,
won't be surprised if it does.
without
Whereas
a doubt,
like if like
without a
Mahomes
doubt.
does it, I'm surprised.
Hmm.
All right, that's it for the AFC recap. Out of all those teams, who's your favorite to give the Chiefs a run for
The
the
Ravens
regular
by
season?
far. It's like the only team I think in the AFC that can truly give the Chiefs a run is the Ravens. I think a lot of people are going to be like, "What? The Bills? They already beat them in the regular season." But that Chiefs defense is going to tighten up. And again, you cannot say the same thing about the Bills defense when those two teams play in Kansas City. It's almost better for the Chiefs that they lost. Like I'm sure they didn't show their best stuff against the Bills. I'm like part of me thinks they was almost strategic. I know it wasn't, but it definitely feeds a little more fuel for the fire for the Chiefs to make them believe that the underdogs that game. Everyone wants to believe they're the underdogs at times, believe the world's against them. When the Chiefs inevitably, or if they did play the Bills, um, that would be the case. But I like the Ravens because of how great that offense is. Very close game week one when those two teams played, but obviously a much bigger relative edge defensively than the Bills. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, the Bills win, like Josh Allen's gonna have to play insane, which you can, but in the playoffs against top defenses,
It just doesn't you
it's
just don't
much harder.
see that
Yeah,
happen. You see everyone really get bottled up in the playoffs. Even Mahomes does. Um, it invariably happens because that's playoff football and it's great and I love it. Happens to Lamar Jackson every year too. I hope it doesn't this year, but happens every single year to Lamar
yeah,
Jackson.
I know.
Teams
I
scheme
hope
on
not.
him and they struggle, but he's never looked better as a passer. And I think that's so clear and what they've done offensively. I think it's Todd Monken, the offense coordinator there. What he's drawn up for Lamar Jackson to make that offense hum has been nothing short of incredible.
Yeah, no, I mean we'll see. It feels a little different, but I
I'm
mean,
hoping so. It does feel different. Well, it's also it feels different because the AFC has never seemed more achievable for really any team, but any team that not named Kansas City, really.
yeah, yeah, no, and not that it matters, but I like they rested all their starters, but I do feel like Kansas City did not want the Bengals to make the playoffs.
Oh, without a doubt, they
Yeah,
did not want the Bengals. The last
just
thing you want to do is see Joe Burrow in the playoffs throw for 500
come into
yards and 5
Arrowhead
touchdowns.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But
no
all
doubt.
right.
All right, stay tuned for our NFC video. We'll keep you guys updated with the other three games that are being played this weekend.